You're living through the 3 days of darkness, and you haven't even realized it. No, I'm not talking about the end of the world. I'm talking about something far more intimate, far more real. While everyone's looking for signs in the sky, the true darkness has already begun within you. Eckhart Tolle spent years studying this phenomenon, and what he discovered will change everything you think about yourself, because the 3 days of darkness aren't 3 days. They're not literal, and they're not about the world out there. They're about the world you carry inside, and it's undergoing a necessary death. Breathe deeply. Feel where you are right now. Do you perceive this constant unrest, this feeling that something is crumbling? That's precisely what we're going to talk about. The prophecy speaks of 3 days without sunlight. 3 days where humanity is plunged into complete darkness. But Eckhart Tolle discovered something revolutionary about this image. The darkness doesn't come from the outside. It emerges from within. And you're already on the first day. Let me explain how I know this. You wake up in the morning and you already feel it. That weight, as if there's a heavy cloud pressing down on your chest. You try to ignore it. You seek distractions. You grab your phone. You scroll through social media, Netflix, YouTube, compulsive work. Anything to avoid feeling the darkness growing. And there's more. You start to question everything. Your choices, your relationships, even your own memories. Who am I really behind all of this? The question haunts you in your quietest moments. You might be at the peak of your career, have the dream home, the perfect relationship on paper, but inside, there's an emptiness that no external achievement can fill. Is this what you call anxiety, depression, existential emptiness, imposter syndrome, a midlife crisis? Eckhart Tolle has a different name for it. He calls it the dark night of the ego's soul. And this night has 3 distinct phases. First day of darkness, the phase of denial. You feel something is wrong, but you can't name what. It's as if there's a fundamental disconnect between who you believe you are and who you really are. You look in the mirror, and for a split second, you don't recognize yourself. Who is this person looking back at me? The ego panics. It starts building more stories, more identities, more masks. I am successful. I am important. I am special. But the masks are starting to crack, and the more you try to hold on, the more they crumble. Eckhart went through this. He recounts waking up one morning at 29 with such profound existential anguish that he thought, I can't live with myself anymore. It was more than depression. It was a profound terror of existence, as if the very act of being conscious was unbearable. He describes it as an undercurrent of unease and fear that was always there, but that night became inescapable. For hours, he lay there with this thought echoing, I can't live with myself. And then something extraordinary happened. He realized, wait, if I can't live with myself, then there are 2 of me here. The I and the myself I can't live with. Which one is real? And in that question, everything changed. As if a door that had been locked his entire life suddenly swung open. This question is the doorway to the second day of darkness. Second day, the phase of collapse. Here, the mental structures begin to crumble. Everything you believed about yourself, about life, about your purpose, is called into question. It's as if the ground beneath your feet begins to crack. First small fissures, then giant craters, until you realize there's no solid ground. There never was. You may be experiencing this now, feeling like everything you've built is crumbling. Relationships that seemed solid reveal their fragility. The career that defined you loses its meaning. Beliefs that were your foundation prove questionable. Even your identity, which you defended with such fervor, begins to seem like a fantasy. Who am I when I remove all these labels, when I take off all these masks, when I stop playing all these roles? It's terrifying, and it's necessary. Like a snake that needs to shed its skin. The process is painful, But without it, there's no growth. The old skin needs to be left behind, even if it causes discomfort, even if it leaves you temporarily vulnerable. And there's a voice inside you whispering, "Who am I when all this disappears?" That voice isn't your ego. It's something far deeper. Eckhart calls it the observing presence, the pure consciousness that exists before all your stories, before all your masks, and it's beginning to awaken. But the ego doesn't give up easily. It will fight. It will create drama. It will amplify your fears. It will make you believe you're going crazy. If I am not my achievements, if I am not my problems, if I am not even my thoughts, then who am I? This question haunts the second day, like a shadow you can't escape. But there's something Eckhart discovered, something that changes everything. The shadow. It doesn't exist to destroy you. It exists to liberate you. Because on the second day of darkness, something miraculous happens. You begin to realize that you are not that voice in your head. You are the one who hears the voice. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes the thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the space where emotions appear and disappear, and this discovery is the beginning of the third day. But before we get there, I need to tell you something that might shock you. The 3 days of darkness have been predicted in various traditions, not just in Christianity. In Buddhism, they speak of the long night of the soul. In Hinduism, of the inner Kali Yuga. In Jungian psychology, of nigredo, the process of psychological death that precedes rebirth. All these traditions knew something that our modern society has forgotten. To be reborn, you must first die. Not physically, psychologically. The you that you believe you are, that you, built of stories, memories, achievements, failures, that you needs to go through the darkness. Because on the other side of the darkness, there is a light that doesn't come from the outside world, a light that has always been there, waiting. Eckhart discovered this firsthand. That morning at 29, when he said, "I can't live with myself anymore," something died. The false self, the fabricated self, the self that was constantly in conflict with life. And what was born? The presence, pure consciousness, the true self that has always been there, behind all the mental confusion. He describes it like this: "It was as if a 220-pound burden had been lifted from my shoulders, a burden I didn't even know I was carrying. And you are carrying that same burden, the weight of trying to be someone you're not, the constant effort to maintain an image, the exhaustion of defending an identity that, deep down, you know is an illusion. But what if I told you you could drop that burden? What if I told you that the darkness you're feeling isn't punishment? It's an invitation to stop pretending, to stop performing, to stop trying to be perfect, and simply be." But how do you do that? How do you traverse the darkness without getting lost in it? Eckhart Tolle teaches 3 practices, 3 anchors that keep you grounded while the ego dissolves. The first anchor, the breath. Not just any breath, conscious breathing. The kind where you perceive it entering and leaving. When the mind is in chaos, when thoughts are like a hurricane, the breath brings you back to the now, to the only moment that truly exists. But here's the secret that few know. Don't try to control your breath. Just observe. As if you were a fascinated scientist studying this miraculous phenomenon. Inhale and realize, "I am here." Exhale and realize, "I am present." Feel the cool air entering your nostrils. Feel the warm air leaving. Feel your chest expand, how it contracts. Without forcing, just witnessing. No matter what's happening in your mind and no matter how many horror stories the ego is telling, the breath, it's always now, and in the now, you are safe. The second anchor, the body. Your thoughts may be reliving past traumas. Your fears may be projecting future catastrophes, But your body, it's always in the present. Here's something Eckhart Tolle teaches. Your body is a gateway to presence. Every cell in your body is living now. Feel your feet on the ground, really feel them. The texture, the temperature, the pressure. Feel your hands, the palm, the fingers, the pulse. Feel your skin temperature, the weight of your arms, the sensation of your clothes on your body. Eckhart Tolle calls this inhabiting the body. And when you're truly inhabiting your body, truly present in it, the ego loses its power, because the ego lives in mental abstraction. But the body is pure reality. And the third anchor, this is the most powerful. The third anchor, the silent observer. There's a part of you that never changed. That was there when you were a child. That will be there until your last breath. It's the part that observes your thoughts without judging them, that witnesses your emotions without identifying with them, that remains at peace, even in the midst of chaos. Eckhart Tolle calls this part the presence. And it is indestructible. The ego can be destroyed, the masks can fall, the identities can crumble, but the presence, it is eternal. And when you recognize that you are that presence, everything changes, because you realize you were never in danger, that you were never lost, that you were never separated from life. You have always been one with everything that exists. But to recognize this, you need to go through the darkness. And the good news is, you don't go through it alone. Millions of people are going through the 3 days of darkness right now. Some consciously, others without knowing what's happening. But everyone is being called to the same awakening. The awakening to who you truly are, behind all the stories, behind all the fears, behind all the masks. You are consciousness itself, pure, unlimited, eternal. And the 3 days of darkness are just the cleansing process, removing everything that is not you, so that you can recognize who you always were. But tell me something, are you feeling it? That restlessness that seems to have no name? That feeling that something fundamental is changing? If so, you are not alone, and you're not going crazy. You are awakening. Now, we arrive at the 3rd day, the day of inner resurrection. But before entering it, I need to warn you something. The 3rd day, it's not what you expect. There are no fireworks, no mystical ecstasy, no celestial voice saying, "Congratulations, you woke up." The 3rd day is silent. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, like the dawn. You don't see the sun rise. Suddenly, it's already there. Eckhart Tolle describes it like this. One day, I simply realized that there was no one left inside fighting with me. The inner dialogue had stopped. And when the dialogue stops, what remains? Peace, pure, unconditional. Not the peace you conquer, not the peace you deserve, the peace that you are. But how do you know when you've reached the 3rd day? How do you recognize that the transformation has happened? There are signs, subtle but unmistakable. First sign, you stop fighting with life. Not because you gave up, because you understood something fundamental. Life is not your enemy. You spent years trying to control, trying to force, trying to make everything your way, and suddenly you simply let go, not out of defeat, but out of wisdom. Second sign, you stop seeking approval. For years, you needed the validation of others to feel valuable. You needed likes, recognition, someone telling you that you matter. But on the 3rd day, this becomes irrelevant. Not because you've become arrogant, because you've discovered a source of value that doesn't depend on anyone. You discovered that you are valuable simply by existing. Third sign, you stop resisting your emotions. Before, when sadness arrived, you fought against it. When anger arose, you suppressed it. When fear appeared, you pretended it didn't exist. On the 3rd day, you simply observe, sadness is here. Anger has arrived. Fear has appeared, like clouds passing in the sky of your consciousness. You no longer identify with them. You are no longer them. You are the sky, unlimited, always present, always serene. And this change, it transforms everything. Your relationships, your work, your way of seeing the world. Because when you stop projecting your fears onto others, you can finally see them as they really are, human beings, just like you, trying to find their way in the dark. And instead of judging, you understand. Instead of criticizing, you embrace. Instead of defending yourself, you simply are present. Eckhart Tolle tells a beautiful story about this. He was in an elevator with a woman who was clearly furious, huffing, grumbling, radiating anger like a radiator emits heat. She glared at him with hostility, as if he were personally responsible for all her problems. The elevator was small. The tension was palpable. Old Eckhart would have recoiled. He would have built a mental barrier. He would have judged, "What an unpleasant woman," or he would have defended himself internally. I didn't do anything wrong, but the awakened Eckhart, he simply remained present, neither reacting nor resisting, just being. And something miraculous happened. The woman's anger began to dissipate, like smoke dissolving into the air. By the end of the ride, she even smiled at him. Nothing was said, nothing was done. Pure presence had made all the difference. Not because he tried to change her, not because he forced some outcome, because presence, it has the power to transform, simply by existing. When you don't react with fear, the other person's fear has nowhere to latch onto. When you don't respond with anger, the other person's anger finds no fuel. You become a space of healing simply by being present. But this doesn't mean you become a saint or that you never feel difficult emotions again. The emotions continue to come. The difference is, they no longer control you. It's like learning to swim. You don't stop the water from existing, but you don't sink anymore. You float, you navigate, you dance with the waves of life. And this dance is beautiful because you finally stopped fighting against what is and started flowing with what is. But there's something Eckhart teaches that can change your life today, before you even complete the 3 days. He calls it the portal of the now. Here's the secret. The now is the only reality that exists. The past, it's memory, thoughts about something that already happened. The future, it's imagination, thoughts about something that may come. But the now is where life happens. And when you are fully present in the now, the ego can't touch you, because the ego lives on time, on past and future, on regrets and anxieties. But in pure now, there's no space for the ego. There's only you and life dancing together. So how do you access this portal? It's simpler than you imagine. Stop right now. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel the air on your skin. Listen to the sounds around you. Don't analyze. Don't judge. Just perceive. You've just entered the portal of the now, and in this space, you are indestructible, because you are no longer a person with problems. You are consciousness itself, observing the human experience. And consciousness can never be hurt. It can observe pain, but it cannot be pain. It can witness fear, but it cannot be fear. It can observe confusion, but it itself is always clear. This discovery is revolutionary, because you realize you were never the victim of life. You were always life itself, expressing itself through a human form. And forms, they come and go. Bodies age, personalities change, circumstances transform. But life is eternal. And you are life. This isn't philosophy. It's not spiritual theory. This is the most fundamental reality that exists. And when you recognize this, the 3 days of darkness make sense. They were never about punishment. They were never about suffering. They were about cleansing, removing everything that is not essential. everything that is not true, everything that is not you, so that you can finally recognize who you always were. But now comes the practical part. How do you live this? How do you integrate this understanding into your daily life? Eckhart suggests 3 simple but powerful practices. First practice, the sacred minute. Every day, when you wake up, before picking up your phone, before checking messages, before thinking about what you need to do, give yourself 1 minute. A minute that is just yours. No agenda, no goal, no performance. Feel your breath. Feel your body still relaxed in bed. Feel life pulsing within you, the heart beating, the blood circulating, the consciousness awakening. This is not a minute to plan the day. It's not a minute to solve problems. It's a minute to simply be, to recognize, I exist, and that is enough. This minute, it will anchor you in the now. And the now is where all the power is, all the love is, all the peace is. Second practice, the conscious pause. During the day, between one activity and another, between one meeting and another, between one thought and another, pause for 3 full breaths, not to rest, to reconnect with who you are. When you leave a stressful meeting, before moving on to the next activity, just pause, 3 breaths. Feel your feet on the ground. Remember, I am not this stress. I am the one observing the stress. When you finish a difficult discussion, before moving on, pause, 3 breaths. Feel your body. Remember, I am not this anger. I am the one witnessing the anger. Because it's easy to get lost in doing. It's easy to forget being. It's easy to completely identify with emotions and situations. But these pauses, they remind you, they bring you back home to who you really are. You are not what you do. You are who is doing, and who is doing is infinitely more important than what is being done. Third practice, compassionate observation. When negative thoughts arise, don't fight them. Observe with compassion, like a loving parent observing a child throwing a tantrum. Ah, fear is here. Ah, anger has arrived. Ah, sadness has appeared. And then let it pass. Because when you don't feed thoughts with resistance, they naturally dissolve, like clouds that dissipate in the wind. These 3 practices, they will transform your life, not overnight, but gradually, gently, like water that sculpts stone, drop by drop, and one day you will realize the restlessness is gone, the internal struggle has stopped. Peace is your constant companion, not because you conquered something, because you stopped fighting against yourself. And in that surrender, you found your true strength, the strength that doesn't come from the ego, the strength that doesn't need to prove anything, the strength that simply is. And this strength, it can move mountains, not through conflict, through presence, not through brute force, through alignment. When you are aligned with who you truly are, life conspires in your favor. Doors open, opportunities appear. The right people show up at the right time, not by magic, by alignment, because when you stop swimming against the current, you discover that the current, it was leading you exactly where you needed to go. And the 3 days of darkness, they were simply the process of you stopping the struggle so that you could finally flow with life, with love, with the truth of who you are. So tell me one thing. Are you ready to stop fighting? Are you ready to release the weight you've been carrying? Are you ready to discover who you really are? If so, then welcome. Welcome to the 3 days of darkness, which aren't days of suffering. They are days of liberation. Liberation from everything you believed you were, but never were, so that you can finally be who you always have been. Pure consciousness, infinite love, eternal presence, and that can never be destroyed, not by the 3 days of darkness, not by anything in this world, because that is what you are. Before the darkness, During the darkness and after the darkness, you always were. The light itself, you just forgot for a while. But now, you're remembering, and this remembering is the true apocalypse. Not the end of the world, the end of an illusion. The illusion that you were separate, that you were lost, that you were alone. You never were. You always were. One with all that is. And the 3 days of darkness were simply the process of removing the veils that prevented you from seeing this. Now you see. Now you know. Now you are. And that is all that matters.